Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Sunday the 15th of November and you're joining us live for our round 3 of the GT3 Championship in Flux Motorsport's second season of 2020. Things are certainly hotting up within the championship and things are about to get a lot warmer as well around the Indianapolis road circuit. And of course, bringing it to you at the Brickyard. And our qualification is just about to begin, 20 minutes underway, which both myself and my very good friend and co-commentator The Console are going to be bringing to you live and direct, with 45 minutes of racing to follow on. And we've just been talking, haven't we, Alex, that it's looking to be a bit of a shock with a newcomer into the championship in the practice session, setting the fastest lap.
Yeah, so we had Tibby's had to make a sort of retirement due to technical difficulties, and Poison Rage is the guy who's stepping up to the plate and try and fill those boots and launch a sort of a late campaign to the top here. But in practice, he was the quickest. So obviously looking to make an impression on what I believe is his debut Flux Motorsport race. So setting the tone nice and early, letting these boys know that he's not the rookie that they hoped that he was, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we're currently focused on Poison Rage now in that number 61 Fray Motorsport Ferrari 488, and the time that he set inside the practice session was a 1 minute 24.7, and I think we had 4 drivers within 2/10 of that time, and then a bit of a gap going back towards them. So we'll focus on the newcomer, Poison Rage now. We won't refer to him as a rookie after he's just schooled the rest of the grid inside the practice session. But whilst we've got a little bit of time, let's have a run through as to where the standings are currently inside the GT3 Championship. So Brucelaw is sat on top on 63 points, and 5 points down from that is his fellow Kerb Clippers driver in blank file on 58 points, so things really getting close between those two. 10 points down away from Brucelaw, you've got Dr. Potford, who's in 3rd position with eMotorsports in 4th on 50 points, so not much separating those two either. 5th place is Snarling Bongo, with Tibby now retired. It steps Luke 42, or Luke Snipes, up into 6th place. Then Fast AF Gamer in a very surprising 7th position, but look to see that change as the season progresses through, as long as he can find some form. TTV Giacomo, who won't be able to race tonight, finds himself in 8th position in the championship, with Linga Bazinga just behind him, and the Best Gamer, aka Survivor, in 10th place. Green Gaming is then in 12th with Luna Zodiac in 11th place with Luna Zodiac in 12th. Stoltz in 14th, T. Scott in 14th place, and Old Smoky in 15th, with Poison Rage now featuring in 15th position. In 16th position. So, a bit of a mix-up into the standings as we see Poison Rage there getting it all sorts of wrong at very high speeds, returns to the pit, and that is going to cost him a little bit. So we'll flick on over to eMotorsports, who's our current pole setter at the moment, fellow Ferrari 488 driver, and he's looking pretty keen for this one.
Another person to keep an eye on this session, I think, is actually going to be Luke. He's just dropped down to 4th, but at the end of the practice session we just had, almost like a bit of a warm-up, Luke came steaming out of nowhere up into 2nd place. So he's obviously got the pace in the car to get up to the sharp end. It's just whether he can keep a cool head and keep the pressure off in the real thing.
Luke, the last remaining Porsche 911 driver in the number 90 BAM Sports Porsche. All the rest of the Porsche drivers have since changed the cars, I do believe, and he's sticking it out to the end, and it looks as though he's able to make it work. I know that I was on this circuit with him a little bit earlier on in the day, and he was getting some practice in, and he did look pretty sharp. So hopefully he'll be able to challenge for those front row positions, and I think it'll be his first front row start if he can get there and he also got his first Flux Motorsport podium in the LMP2s yesterday, so he'll be looking to try and top off what has been a very, very good weekend's worth of racing.
Well, sometimes once the guys get the ball rolling, it definitely ticks over to the next couple of races. So if he's got momentum, we'll be looking to bring it to here today.
Certainly will. So 14 minutes and 35 seconds remaining inside the qualification session. eMotorsports currently in pole position, and the latest driver of Poison Rage currently second, 4 tenths down. But Dr. Potford's just putting a lap in the other Ferrari 488 on the grid. So the Ferraris are looking strong here around the Brickyard road course. There we go, just focus on Dr. Potford for now in that number 31 Ferrari.
So throughout the week we've had a lot of the drivers complaining that the track is sort of too cold for hards, but the soft's not quite hanging on, so ending up in a bit of a odd limbo of tyre choice. And I think that could be playing a little bit sort of into play here, while we're seeing some people sort of mix up, and a lot of people going back to the pits and have another go at it, maybe struggling just to get them tyres into the window.
Just to remind you viewers that all of our races that you see broadcast here on Flux Motorsport are raced at the current date, so the simulated date will be the 15th of November, of course 2020, and they're actually simulated for the qualification session at 12 o'clock, and then the race will begin at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So we are in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment in America, so we are just sort of midway through fall or autumn, depending on where in the world you are. So that's why the track temperatures are so low, and it's going to prove pretty tricky to try and get the tyres really working for the drivers, as opposed to the summer racing that is oh so common here at Indianapolis. But eMotorsports continues to remain on top. Nobody really challenging as of yet. The nearest rival is Dr. Potford in second place, 36 tenths down. Looks as though Old Smoky and Luna Zodiac currently struggling to get laps in. They're just currently sat in the pits. Luna Zodiac is now out of the pits though, and he's going to try and challenge it one more time. So, do you think that we're going to have multiple pit strategies here today, or do we reckon that the drivers are going to make one set of tyres work for them, because it's a very, very long pit lane here at Indianapolis? Yeah,
I was going to say the pit lane at Indianapolis is not your friend. It is so long. You're going to lose so much time. Even if the pit just for damage, it's going to be seriously race altering. So I think a lot of the guys are going to put the hards on, and then just sort of struggle to the end as best they can, really. I think the guys who will who are going to sort of do the best here are the people who can keep the tyres operating right where they want them. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of people sort of coming offline and doing some odd manoeuvres trying to generate the heat or maintain the heat. But no, I think definitely a no stopper is the way to go if you can do it. But in motorsport, anything can happen. You know, a lot of people can take dinks and make mistakes, so it should be good. And especially with the way the top three are looking at the minute, it's going to be a good mix-up this week.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the end of it either. I mean, we're focused on Brucelaw at the moment, just waiting to get his lap time in. And I'm expecting these current qualification laps to really come down in the final 10 minutes of this session. Let's have a look at what Brucelaw can put in. There he goes, pole position on a 1:24.879. So we're certainly getting closer to the sort of times that we saw within the practice. And I think we'll start to see a bit of a frantic bash towards the final 10 minutes of this one. Let's keep our eyes out on the rest of the drivers. eMotorsports looks as though he's just coming around the final corner. Let's see what he can put in. Oh, he comes across the line just 1,000th of a second behind Brucelaw to land second on the grid. So there's definitely improvements to be made there. You can always shave off 1,000, I'm sure.
You say that, this will be the hardest thousands he's ever going to have to find.
More than likely, mate, yeah. More than likely. We'll have to wait and see what the rest of the drivers. I mean, Luke, we did see him running a fair bit quicker in the practice session. We'll maybe feature over to him once Dr. Potford finishes his lap. He's just coming around the final corner now. Let's have a look at what his Ferrari can do. Comes across the line and there's an improvement, but not enough to challenge the front row as of yet.
One thing to keep in mind, Simon, is that
okay.
Immortalis been sitting in second. We'll actually put him to the inside for turn 1. So that might be a thousandth he doesn't actually want to find if he's going to try and get a move on Bruce off the start, which isn't a terrible plan.
I think one of the things that I often find around this circuit is turn 1. It can get super messy off the start. You've got so many cars. You can find yourselves 3 wide sometimes around Indianapolis, and in turn 1 that is not where you want to be, especially if you're in a sandwich. But the inside line is so hard to get right. If you can make it, by all means, you've got to get pretty late onto the brakes. You've got to be able to control any power slides to make sure that you don't cause a 14 car pile up in this case. But Immortalis can make that sort of thing work. We've seen him really late on the brakes. We've seen him manage to control it and not get too messy. So I do stand testament that he might be able to do it. However, he is now on the second row. We've seen Blankfile come out of nowhere really with a 124.280. So that's enough for podium position, for pole position for now. And he's looking like he's really trying to put the nail in the coffin to Brucelaw's previous sort of clean sweeps in last season's GT3 Championship. And Snarling Bongo out of nowhere also comes into second place with a 124.756. So it looks as though the track's really starting to liven up now, getting rubber laid down over the first 13 minutes of qualification. And the temperatures will just start to be rising as we eke over the midday sun here at Indianapolis. So the track temperature will start to liven up a little bit, and the amount of cars that are running over it's going to raise that temperature even more, maybe just make it liven up. So we'll keep our eye out. Brucelaw is since in the pits. Immortalis is out on track at the moment. Dr. Potford can make an impression, as can Poison Rage. Don't forget we saw him at the top out of the practice session, so we'll keep our eye out on those times. Luke 42 did very well indeed as well. Luke Snipes currently in 7th place, and we always expect Linga Bazinga to run a little bit quicker than where he's currently sat in 8th position. So anything can happen in the final 7 minutes here.
And what's really good to see is that, I mean, up to near enough 8th are only separated by a second. So it's still crazy close, and if we're seeing the track start to sort of develop and give these guys the extra grip that they need, that's going to get even tighter.
And Bongo in 2nd place, and he's looking like he's finding big bursts of pace throughout all of this. Let's have a look over to Bruce. In fact, Brucelaw's currently out on a cold lap, I believe. Let's have a look at Immortalis. He's just coming over the final corner, about to cross the start-finish line. Let's see what he can put in. Is he going to see an improvement from 5th? He's not. He goes straight back into the pits, straight back out again. And fast AF Gamer, we could just see his BMW M6 there, just behind Immortalis. Surprising in 6th position at the moment. I think he's a bit of a fan of this track, and he's not making it work for him at the moment. Such is the competition of his nearest rivals, I think.
And Linga has just jumped up to 2nd as well, so Linga and Snarling both digging that little bit deeper and finding some space.
Luke Snipes there just under braking, it seems. Didn't see any lockups, maybe just timing it a little bit late and pushing that aerodynamically altered Porsche 911 around the circuit.
Percussive adjustments.
Yep, most definitely. I don't think it's going to be helping. But yep, the Dutchmen move up into 2nd and 3rd place with Linga Bazinga and Snarling Bongo at the moment. Blankfile continues to remain on pole position with a 124.280, so we'll have to wait and see whether or not this can be improved upon. 5 minutes remaining of the session, and an outlap is going to take, what, around about a minute and 50 seconds, I think, just due to the extent of the long pit lane here. So no improvement from Linga Bazinga that time to challenge first place. He comes straight back into the pits and straight back out again with a fresh set of rubbers. So they're obviously running softs through this and getting 1 or 2 laps in it before those tyres go off. Back over to eMotorsports. He's struggling to make improvements. I've not seen an improvement upon his time for a while. He's been sat at that sort of 124.880.
Some of the problem you can find is, especially in a session that's as sort of fast-paced as this, is you almost get the blinders on and you start trying too hard, trying to find that extra bit of pace, and you end up pushing the car beyond its limits and actually going slower. And I wonder whether that's sort of taking effect on eMotorsports at the minute. He's just pushing, sort of head down, pushing as hard as he can, and is sort of overdoing it. It's
when you tend to have a little bit overspeed into corners, or maybe overbrake. Yes, we've got Blank Foul closely followed by Green Gaming at the moment. Green Gaming trying to make this slipstream work for him inside his Cadillac. But Blank Foul remains on pole position at the moment, absolutely flying with that 124.280, and as you've mentioned, top 9 now, all within a second really, and then we've got another pack behind, and that's going to make some very close racing around a very tricky course. It's one of those where it's a bit of a silent killer at the Brickyard. You'll be thinking that you've got it completely sussed, you'll be taking your lines as you usually do, and all of a sudden take too much of a curb and it'll just spit you out. So it's going to be a really tricky one over the 45 minutes of race time that we've got coming up in just 3 minutes time.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head there, Murph. The track is, for the most part, other than the banking, is flat, which is ideal, but the curbs here, you hit them in the wrong way, or even some of them, even if you look at them funny, they will take the car away from you. And definitely in the later stages of the race, when these guys are pushing, it's such a wide track, as you said, you can get sort of 3 or 4 wide. And if you're offline and you hit the curb, as I said, we're probably going to see at least 2 people, I reckon, come sufferers to the curbs.
Oh, definitely. End of the first section is it's one of those where it can quite easily punish you. But also the sort of final curb through there's a very tricky corner, just I think it's 3 from the end, the sort of left-hander that almost closes in on itself. One of those as well where if you clip the inside, it can maybe make you understeer a little bit, and if you hit your rear tyres on the outside curb as it goes left, it can quite easily spin you around and into the inside line of another driver if somebody's there. So really it's a simple track to drive, it's a very tricky track to race. You can get around it without any problem just because it's so wide and the apexes are so obvious, but to race on it and to get competitively quick times, it is a tricky little beast. And it looks as though our drivers now may have reached the plateau. I'm not seeing any improvements at all in the lap times.
While we were yapping, Blank File actually went quicker, and then Linga has gone quicker again. So those 2 are the only 2 to make any sort of dent in progressing
in
really.
The previous times.
Yeah.
1 minute and 20 seconds remaining inside the session. It's going to get very, very tricky indeed for the guys out on track on outlaps to try and make improvements without any traffic ahead of them. Quite a few of them actually deciding that enough is enough and going into the pits, so they're not going to be able to get another bite at the cherry. Snarling Bongo included in that, iMotorsports, Fast AF Gamer, Dr. Potford, Linga Bazinga's now into the pits. Let's go over to Brucelaw and let's see what he's doing at the moment inside the SLS.
Can't help but notice they've all gone into the pits as Blankfall just dipped into 123s now.
Yeah,
so still finding even more pace.
Really just hooking it up. I wonder whether or not he perhaps got a bit of a toe, or maybe just he's getting so accustomed to the circuit that he's just finding those marginal improvements that you see where you've noted that you may be going a little bit wide, or maybe you're braking a little bit too hard, and That's Brucelaw deciding enough's enough, so Blankfile continues to reign supreme in this session. Currently sat on pole position. We've got Poison Rage still left to challenge, but it did look as though it was a bit of a messy lap. I think we saw him on the grass as Brucelaw was coming around, so I don't think there's going to be any improvement from that. And qualification is now up, so the drivers will just be able to finish the laps, and then we'll be able to lock in their positions ready for today's race.
And it's good to see something different other than an AMG up the front for a change. I'm getting quite accustomed to seeing the little Z4 nipping round at the front.
Yeah, he can obviously make it work. I think it was his favoured car through some of his Kerb Clipper championships, where he made a name for himself. I think 14 championships in total in that community. And I think the Z4 was his preferred steed, and he's brought it over to Flux Motorsport, and he's certainly making it work for him on the tracks that he can. I know that he struggled massively in race 1, as we see Luke 42 there. That was no curb, that just looked to be maybe a little bit too much throttle on the way out of that one. So once he crosses the line, that'll be job done. Nice to see a few familiar faces on the stream tonight. Quite a lot of support going out for the KSCR guys. Nice to see you, Angie. Regular viewer. Should be supporting Blankfile and Brucelaw through this one, but really just wants to get stuck into some great racing here at Flux Motorsport. So there it is, your qualifying grid for tonight. Blankfile is in pole position. Linga Bazinga in second with Snarling Bongo in the prime position on the second row with Brucelaw alongside him. Poison Rage on his debut comes in at 5th place with Immortalis in 6th. Fast AF Gamer in a surprising 7th. Dr. Potford in 8th position. Luke Snipes is in 9th with Stoltz in 10th. And then we've got Survivor in 11th place with Luna Zodiac. Surprising to see him so low down on the grid, but these guys are really putting in quick times around a very tricky circuit. Finds himself in 12th place with Green Gaming in 13th, Old Smoky in 14th, and at the back of the grid. So let us know your predictions for the race. We're going to have 2 minutes of tinker time for the drivers to set themselves up, ready for 45 minutes of action. The weather report looks as though it's going to be dry throughout all of this race. It's currently just a little bit of light cloud overhead at the brickyard, and I don't think it's going to change too much. So the rains from Daytona are finally blown over. We can get stuck into some regular dry racing. Whilst we're waiting for these guys to set up, let me just remind you that we will be featuring our Touring Car Championship live on Tuesday from 8 o'clock PM. You'll be able to join me and the Touring Car Boys live on track at the usual place on our YouTube channel. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss it, be sure to hit the subscribe button on the channel, and you'll get a notification whenever we go live, and you can tune in, or you can catch the live stream catch up at your convenience. Then, of course, we will be soon to be bringing you the GT1 Championship from Thursday. That was a really close race, and there was all sorts of thrills and spills going on at the Dubai Autodrome. I was involved in far too many of the spills, but we'll be bringing you that uploaded onto our YouTube page very shortly. And then next week, in the GT3 Championship, you'll be able to look forward to Long Beach's GP circuit, which is infamous for action. Expect plenty of GT3 parts to be on the floor at the end of that one. But all eyes focused now onto the grid at Indianapolis for the GT3 race. Here come the lights. And they're away. Looks to be a slow start from Linga Bazinga. Rest of the grid look to get away okay, and a Fast AF Gamer absolutely smashes into a Ferrari. Which one was it? I think it might be Immortalis. Immortalis has dropped all the way down to 11th place, so not sure what happened to Fast AF Gamer there though, but Blankfile continues to lead the charge. Linga Bazinga in second and Snarling Bongo in third. Looks as though Brucelaw is about to try and make the moves on the number 84 of Snarling Bongo. And the rest of the grid looked to get away okay. It did just look as though it was Fast AF Gamer and Immortalis. Although Immortalis has been able to move all the way up.
Looks like it was Poison. Poison has dropped back to 9th in the other Ferrari.
Let's just, I don't want to miss out on this overtaking opportunity, but it doesn't look as though Brucelaw is going to turn it on that time. Let's have a look over at Poison. I think it is. Look at the front bumper of that Ferrari. It's looks as though out on his debut got absolutely smattered by one of the veterans, really, in the form of Fast AF Gamer. Let's get back over to the front of the grid and look at the gap that's already formed between Blankfile and Linga Bazinga and Snarling Bongo in 3rd place. That is surprising. Almost 2 seconds, and they're not even halfway through the circuit yet. Looks as though Brucelaw momentarily got himself into 3rd place, and then it looked as though he was fulfilling a slowdown penalty there and allowing Snarling Bongo to come back on through. You see Linga there just having a very adventurous look up the inside. It's not going to happen that time, not from that distance. Let's have a little look at what's going on behind. Immortalis in 6th place. Dr. Popford is doing very well in 5th. And 2 Ferraris locked out in 5th and 6th position. We've got Stoltz in 7th, Luke Snipes in 8th, Poison Rage in 9th place, and Fast AF Gamer just behind. Let's have a look at Fast AF Gamer. Let's have a look, see if there's any damage. Doesn't look as though there's too much to the M6. Looks as though the Ferrari of Poison Rage took the brunt of it. See there, Survivor 20 seconds back as well. I wonder whether or not he's had a spin along with Lunar Zodiac to maybe find themselves that far back.
It looks like he's had a look at that front end of the McLaren, so you could be right there, Murph.
Unusual to see them so far back after one lap, but let's get stuck into the front of this one. We're already seeing quite a number of different packs forming up. The front runners in Blankfile and Linga Bazinga look absolutely tuned into one another at the moment. They've almost got 4 seconds up to Snarling Bongo, and you can see there the split time just rising and rising. But Blankfile continues to lead Linga Bazinga. Blankfile looks on fine form today, and I think it's going to be a really close race between these two. First to blink, I think. But back over, we can just see Brucelaw in the background having a little look up Snarling Bongo's inside, maybe just trying to apply a little bit of pressure there. And very consistent lines there between the AMG and the SLS. Brucelaw in the red liveried SLS, and Snarling Bongo ahead of him in the grey 84 AMG. So the Lunar Zodiac's coming in for some damage repairs. We did see a bit of front end damage on the front of that McLaren. Brucelaw has a little look up the inside, and he's got that move done like a pro. Whether or not he can hold on to it through the oversteer. It looks as though he has got that one done, and the car looks really well balanced through that the S section. So common to catch somebody out. Not this time though.
That's not uncommon to see from Bruce. The car that's behaving nicely and playing ball. Although when we talk to him after the race, he always says that the car was set up was horrible. So maybe he's a bit of a perfectionist, but that was a great move on Snarling, and it shows the racecraft of both drivers not to have a massive accident, sort of taking a manoeuvre like that into the braking zone.
Yeah, he was one of the more vocal drivers. Let's have a look at this. Fast AF Gamer has lost it. I think that's on the run down to the big braking. Looked as though he might have stalled it as well. The big braking, I think it's of is it turn 9 maybe? Not too sure. I haven't got the track map up ahead of me, but just towards the final sector, and now finds himself running in 13th place. So his championship goes from bad to worse, unfortunately, for Fast AF Gamer. Going to have to pull in another recovery drive, which we've seen from him week after week.
That has been the story of his season, really. Not having a great run to season 2. Season 1, he was up the front pretty much every race, even taking a few race wins to take second overall. But this season has been laced with tragedy at every race. There's been a different incident, or losing the car and just not able to keep it all together, which is out of character for him.
Yeah, he's up there with the sort of likes really of Blankfire, Linga Bazinga, Brucelaw. You'd expect him to be in and around that sort of ballpark, but it looks as though this season just really isn't the season for him. But at least in the GT3 Championships, it's as though Dr. Potford has got himself a little bit closer. Just saw the indicators popping up there, a little bit closer to Snarling Bongo. Finds himself just over a second behind, and maybe just getting into a slipstream. You can see the train of cars there. That's Linga Bazinga, Brucelaw, Snarling Bongo, and now Dr. Potford. As eMotorsports comes into the pits, that looks as though it might be a change of tyres as well. Saw the guys on the guns, the holographic pit crew, and he's in there for a while, so I wonder if he's getting some, maybe not damage repairs, or if it was minor. Wasn't in there for too long at all.
That is going to really, screw up his race. There's no two ways about that. As I said in qualifying, the pit lane here is so long, and we can see how much time he's lost just rolling out there. So he's got a mountain to climb. He's even sitting quite a long way off Fast AF at the minute. So we want to keep an eye on it. He's got the pace to get back through the pack, but how far, we wait and see.
I was going to say, he does tend to relish in these sort of high pressure situations and recovery drives. We've seen it quite a few times. It's whether or not he can dial it up and manage to get himself all the way up into the podium, but he definitely seems to sort of thrive under the sort of pressure when he needs to dial up the pace. It's just whether or not this track is working for him. We saw he had loads of pace in qualification, but we also saw him coming into the pits after 1 or 2 laps. To come in for fresh tyres, and I'm just wondering whether or not his tyre dynamics aren't working for him in this race situation. We're on lap 6 at the moment. That might not be the last pit stop if it is. Maybe he's come in and changed some tyre pressures, but we might have to see him coming in for a fresh rubber a couple of times. Perhaps if he's on the softs and they're not really working right.
And this does go back to what we heard sort of during the week. The guy's not been able to keep the softs for long enough and not being able to get the hards into the window. So obviously still a little bit of figuring out to do for him. Unfortunately, he's having to do it in the race.
Yep, and it's definitely not the time that you want to be doing it. Dr. Potford there, just on the turn before that straight, we just saw him cutting the nose off that, and the race director will be looking out for it, and that is one of your classic moments for a slowdown penalty. It's relatively easy to recover your slowdown because of the straight that's ahead of it. You can just let off the throttle and maybe brake a little bit later, but you will have to watch that. Otherwise it will be time penalties applied, and that could cost him what would be a very good finish from Dr. Potford here today. Currently in 5th place, and he is adding extra pressure onto Snarling Bongo. But I tell you who is adding extra pressure on, that is blank file on Linga Bazinga. He's now 6 seconds ahead of him. Brucelaw isn't too far away from Linga Bazinga. In fact, let's have a look at that at the moment. So you can see him there, maybe 8 or 9 car lengths behind. But if we go to blank file, Linga Bazinga is barely even in view. In fact, he's not in view now. So blank file just needs to keep his head on his shoulders, and as we bring up the map here, you can see he's got nothing but clean air for quite a long portion of this track. And Poison Rage now comes into pit, so it's going to be a struggle for him to try and hold on to what was a good starting position. I'm sure that we're going to see a steward's inquiry from that start. It did look as though perhaps Fast AF Gamer just maybe oversteered off the line, and it just shot him from left to right into the completely innocent Poison Rage. Poison Rage now slips down into 12th place, and he might risk losing another one if he does get that damage repaired that he sustained at the start of the race. We're back on over to the battle for 2nd place. Got Brucelaw chasing down Linga Bazinga. Linga Bazinga in the 124 AMG. Brucelaw, of course, running in the SLS. Looks as though that AMG has just got the legs out of the corners on the SLS. Brucelaw seems to make it up, perhaps under the braking zones, but seems like on the run out to the corners where there's a straight afterwards, that lead just seems to extend ever so slightly. Have a look at what's going on a little bit further down the pack in the form of Luke Snipes and Fast AF Gamer. Fast AF Gamer trying to pull out a recovery drive in his M6, whereas Luke Snipes is just trying to do all he can inside that Porsche. Very quick inside the practice session as we see him moving over to the inside, just trying to disrupt the draft there of Fast AF Gamer. Fast AF Gamer goes up to the outside. It looks like he's going to try and do it under braking, but we saw him there just squirreling on the front end. And these two guys do go at it very hard against each other. You can quite often see a lot of pressure being applied, and it quite often results in contact when they are racing, so they're going to have to be extra careful. Fast AF Gamer especially after what seemed like some contact right at the very start of the race. I think eMotorsports has been helped out by the pit stop of Poison Rage as well. He now moved up into 12th place, and it looks as though he's just about to take on Old Smokey. In fact, I did say that earlier on that Luke Snipes was the only Porsche. I did forget that Old Smokey actually joined us last week in the number 14 GMG Racing Porsche 911, so not quite the last one. eMotorsports is going to want to try and get past Old Smokey as quick as possible. He's certainly got the pace in it. You can see there from the lap times, Old Smokey with a 136.9 last time around, eMotorsports on a 127.4. And outside of the top 6, that is the quickest lap from the rest of the field from eMotorsports.
And we can sort of see it here, albeit that Indianapolis is a really wide track. It's so difficult to overtake. Nothing ever seems to line up the way you'd want it to as the overtaking car. And we can see it here with Old Smoke and eMotorsports. Although eMotorsports is able to set that quicker lap time, he's not able to do anything until he gets to this straight, and even then it's not as clean cut as he'd like.
It looks like he's done it under braking. He did have the draft, and the Ferrari just able to brake that little bit later, and eMotorsports moves across. He does go a little bit wide on an exit from that, but he looks as though he avoided all of the grass. Let's jump back on over to Fast AF Gamer and the battle between him and Luke Snipes at the moment. Luke Snipes in the Porsche 911, Fast AF Gamer in the BMW M6.
While we're talking, it looks like Bruce has taken a good chunk more time out of Linga as well, so that's going to be coming to fruition in the next sort of lap and a half, 2 laps.
You can see it now down to around about 0.6 of a second. Let's just have a look, see whether or not Fast AF is going to get the drive. In fact, I thought the positions were about to change, and a huge bump there, just losing it from the exit of the final turn for Fast AF Gamer. And that's going to be a little bit of aerodynamic and suspension damage, I think, for the M6.
His woes continue.
Yeah, that might be another lengthy pit stop, and that could see him fall in and around the area of Lunar Zodiac. Let's jump back over then to the battle that we saw developing between Brucelaw and Linga Bazinga. It's been there from the very start, but Brucelaw has started to close the door on the split times between the two. With Brucelaw.
There's one thing to catch up, there's another to overtake, and Linga is by no means slow. So this is going to be interesting.
You see there, Brucelaw just pushing the braking envelope just that little bit later, a couple of yards in it really, 5 or 6 yards difference. But he does look to be a little bit later on the brakes, maybe just trying to squeeze out wherever he can, and a little bit later once again. Able to make massive gains throughout any of this. These are the sort of corners where you'd expect the AMG to sort of reign a little bit more dominant with extra power. Linga Bazinga doing every trick in the book just to try and disrupt the slipstream. It looks as though it's working.
And for the guys watching at home, the thing that's really impressive about Bruce's driving, if you can see the speedo on the right hand side, is how smooth he is on the throttle and the braking throughout all of this section. And that's really the key to being fast, is smooth. So even though he's putting all this pressure on, he's still keeping the car nice and balanced, nice and happy, not overdoing it.
It's that with the smoothness in the transition. I mean, you quite often see, we see a little bit of a mistake there from Linga Bazinga, and that just allows the window of opportunity for Brucelaw. So Brucelaw goes up into second place now, 12.5 seconds behind Blank File, and his lap times are not too dissimilar from the current leader. Lap 12 at the moment, 30 minutes or 29 minutes remaining of this session, and I'm pretty sure that battle will not be over between those two Mercs. Linga Bazinga won't want to give that spot up easily, and they'll be applying a lot of pressure onto Brucelaw. So, as a comparison, let's get the speedo up for Linga Bazinga and just have a look at the difference between the transitions between braking and throttle. Bear in mind, you're going to see a slow rise whenever they do change, but once again, proving the where the speed comes from, the balance between throttle and braking. And you can see just a little touch of braking into the corners with a little bit of throttle, a little bit of trail braking from both drivers, just to try and make sure that the car is well poised throughout the corner.
Especially with that big AMG, we're coming into the corners, you want to get all of that lumpy weight right over the front wheels and try and drive out the corner as early as you can. Basically, the quicker you can get the turning done and straighten the car up, the quicker you can get back on the power and open up them AMG horses. So both drivers, they're showing exactly how it's done, really. Get the weight over the front, get the car in, and then bang, get your foot flat as early as possible.
Looks as though we've got the first retirement of the evening. It's fast AF game, and looks as though that second crash was just too much for him. Comes into the pits, and it's game over for Indianapolis for him. A little look what's going on down the order. In fact, whilst we've got a little bit of time as well, let's bring up the timing boards. It doesn't look as though we've got any penalties to speak of, which is very good from the drivers after 13 laps. Like I said, it is relatively easy to get rid of some slow down penalties. Some of them are really tricky when you're coming through the tight infield sections of this circuit. You just don't really seem to have any time to off throttle.
It's normally
the last thing you want to do is touch the brake.
It's normally that flat out chicane that we see them go through, just coming out of this section here, I think. No, sorry, this is the final section. Out of turn 3, they come up to the chicane onto the back straight, and sometimes you can just cut that chicane just wrong, yeah, and it'll flag you up for a penalty.
I think that's the one that we mentioned a little bit earlier, but I think the beauty of that one is it's so easy to get rid of it. You just need to make sure that you're off throttle way before your braking zone. Have a little look over here. We've just seen, in fact, I think it was quite a simple pass. I think it was the Cadillac of Green Gaming just being passed by Immortalis. That's what flashed up on there.
That'll be a slow down penalty. That's the chicane I was talking about.
Yeah. Nicely presented on the screen there for us. And it looks as though they've gone past old Smokey, so where does Lunar Zodiac fall into all of this? Unless old Smokey's been lapped for a second time. In fact, he has. I've just had a look at the timing boards there. So yeah, it does look as though he has there. Let's flash back on over to first and second place. Brucelaw in second. Linga Bazinga in third place. Just saw the front end there getting a little bit loose from Brucelaw. He had to catch that, and he won't want too many of those twitchy bum moments. Just a sign of the tyres starting to find a bit of a dip in performance.
Could be a dip in performance, or the fact that down these straights Linga's going to be having the tow from the AMG, and if he can just hang on through the infield section, he can start to make dents and chip away probably his best bet is probably move into turn 1, like we saw him just have a little look there, or at the end of this other straight that they're going to come up to now.
Bazinga continues to try and pressure Brucelaw. It's this section that we might see it turn on the pressure, and that's where we see that classic little cut. Whether or not he's going to get a slowdown for that, we'll have to wait and see.
Bruce got a great run out of that corner. Linger not able to get anywhere near him into the braking zone, so good drive from him.
Through this S section, really tricky to make sure that you keep the car well balanced. It's so easy to get a big bucket full of oversteer as you chuck it through there. This looks to be the back marker of Luna Zodiac approaching. Not in the most ideal of places, and it looks as though he just goes over to the inside, releases the throttle and allows the cars ahead to move on through on the racing line. Great bit of etiquette there from Luna Zodiac. The current back marker, but he's still within a hefty bit of points, because don't forget there's usually 16 drivers within this championship, so it's going to be beneficial for him to make sure that he finishes this race, and that's why he's still running out there as strong as he can in 12th. Plus, as mentioned previously, pit stops take a long time here at Indianapolis, and he might still be able to gain additional positions should we have any accidents in the remaining 22.5 minutes of this race. We are at the halfway point. Blankfile continues to reign supreme. He's got 14.5 seconds to Brucelaw and Linger Bazinga, who are currently tracking around as they move through the back marker of Green Gaming in 10th position there. Dr. Potford's in 4th place. We haven't seen much from him, but he finds himself 15 seconds back and 6 seconds ahead of the 5th place Snarling Bongo. Stoltz in 6th place with Survivor in 7th. That'll be a really good finish from Survivor if he can maintain that position. And then Luke Snipes in 8th with Immortalis in 9th. Green Gaming in 10th. Poison Rage in 11th. And Luna Zodiac in 12th.
And it looks like Immortalis isn't able to close the gap up to Luke probably quite as quickly as he'd like. So Luke, although sitting sort of a minute 16 off of the front, is actually still maintaining a good pace.
I do wonder, whether or not we're perhaps encountering Immortalis having to really ease off. Again, I've just got this sneaking suspicion that because of the chatter from the rest of the grid about tyres, that maybe he hasn't had time to set this one up. We did hear from him at the start of the race saying that he hasn't had as much practice as he would have liked for this one, and I wonder whether or not he's just having to lift off, because he's maybe a second and a half away from the sort of race pace that we'd expect from him, which is the same sort of race pace as Brucelaw and Linger Bazinga at the moment, and that's what we saw from him from qualifying. So I wonder whether or not his setups maybe just hampering him a little bit, and we'll see quick laps followed by much slower laps.
That's similar to what we saw at Circuit of the Americas last week. We saw him able to put down lightning pace for sort of 4 or 5 goes round, and then would drop off drastically for the next sort of 3 laps while everything cools down and gets itself back to normal, and then another sort of 3-4 lap sprint. It was almost like a sort of dips and swells, really.
Well, just checking out the YouTube comments. Fast AF Gamer has now joined us inside the comment section live on the YouTube stream, and it looks as though coming out of the final corner, Luna had a spin, made contact. Just spooked Fast AF, and that's why we saw him collide with the wall, and that was when it was curtains. But it looks as though he's expecting Blankfile to win, Brucelaw in 2nd and Linger Bazinga in 3rd. So the current lineup, he actually let slip that he's hoping that Brucelaw manages to get the win here. Not sure whether or not that is to benefit his championship. I don't think it is really, because there's a hair's between Brucelaw and Blankfile at the moment, and I think we'll perhaps see a shift of position inside the championship standings depending on who gets the bonus points. Remember, 1 bonus point for pole position in qualifying and 1 bonus point for the fastest lap of the race as well. We'll have to wait and see how this one pans out.
I think it should be Luke having a bit of a...
Back over to Luke Snipes there, just doing a bit of off-roading in that Porsche.
I was just going to say, I think Matthew's rooting for Bruce as from season 1, the way the championships work at Flux is the top 3 are guaranteed a seat into the next season. So it would have been St Bath, but he did a bit of a Rosberg on us and took the championship and run away with the trophy, just leaving Bruce and Fast AF as the only 2 sort of, yeah, basically. So obviously old rivals.
Old rivals, but
maybe
certainly sort of friendly rivals between the 2.
Hunt and Lauder sort of situation, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not sure which one would be which. I think both of them. It's almost like 2 Lauders, really.
Really, yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those friendly rivalries where it's been unfortunate, really, that this season we haven't really got to see much of them going door to door, which we were really blessed with in season 1. And remember, folks, that you can check out all of the action from season 1 on our YouTube channel. You'll be able to find all of the playlists there from the GT3, GT1 and Formula Renault championships. But let's have a look. It looks as though Linga Bazinga's just within the envelope again. He's less than a second behind Brucelaw. He's unable to make big inroads on that one, but we'll have to wait and see. Brucelaw, the lap times last time around was much quicker than Linga Bazinga. Let's see what happens this time around as they come across the start-finish line for lap 20. Much closer indeed. In fact, faster lap goes to Linga Bazinga that time by half a second. Inroads.
Sorry, Murphy, just to see a 132 from Blankfire, I think, on my screen anyways. That gap for about sort of 15 seconds, drop it down to nearly 10, so maybe a sort of wandering mind there from Blankfire, a little lapse in concentration, making a mistake, or just easing up, letting everything cool down.
A look over, so he has encountered some back markers, maybe passed over 2 in the last lap, maybe just the 1, but can't see any damage there on the Z4, so maybe just making a bit of a mistake, maybe catching up a bit of grass and just slowing him down that way. But it's quite a lot of time really to lose 6 seconds. You would expect to see some damage usually with a loss like that, unless he's maybe just done a 360, pirouetted somewhere on the track that we've missed and just taken a chunk out of his lead. But it's still pretty comfortable, 11.2 seconds currently to the second place of Brucelaw. Linga Bazinga not far behind whatsoever, and they're just encountering a little bit of backmarker traffic.
Sometimes being comfortable is the worst position to be in. If you're sort of too comfortable out the front, you start to wander and lose concentration, and that's when the mistakes will start to eke in there. It's blank files to lose at the minute, so he's just going to have to concentrate just for a little bit longer. Then they're sort of, 3/4 of the way through now, so the last 15-minute stretch.
It's quite often hard to run on your own, isn't it? When you're just sort of sat there without any back markers, even or any competition, just to sort of sit there and run your own race. I often find myself in it, but nowhere near the front of the grid. Yeah, just trying to keep your concentration. It's almost like driving for 6 hours on the motorway. Eventually, you just start to lose a little bit of sharpness. And you see here, I think that is Luke Snipes at the moment. So we want to clear out the way here because it's currently keeping Linga Bazinga away from the battle of Brucelaw. And then we see him moving to one side, just waiting for a safe position to do so, I think.
Good running from Luke as well. He said at the start of the season that he wants to end up sort of mid-pack, and being able to sit within the top 10 is, especially with a grid like this, is no easy feat. So props to him for getting up there and doing what he set out to do, really.
His lap times as well don't look too bad whatsoever. I think the problem with Luke Snipes in terms of his positions is mainly just making sure that he keeps the car pointing in the right direction throughout the duration of the race, which is definitely easier said than done, but his pace is definitely there, and he can continue that pace for long periods. It's just those momentary lapses or mistakes that really seem to cost him, unfortunately. But he's quite a young driver, and he's certainly seeing improvements as the season goes on, and who knows what will happen in season 1 of 2021. We'll have to wait and see where he features throughout that and which championships he manages to get into. But very active member of the community, Luke Snipes, and you'll often see him hosting a community lobby. And if you want to get involved and join in those community lobbies, or have a chance at a seat for season 1 of 2021 here at Flux Motorsport, then don't forget, all you need to do is head on over to fluxmotorsport.com, and in the top right hand side you'll see a link to join the Discord. And if you don't know what Discord is or haven't used it, don't worry, it's a completely free bit of software that you can use on any regular device, whether or not it's a laptop, desktop, mobile phone. It covers it all free and pretty simple to use. Just click the link once you've downloaded it, and you'll be greeted by one of our welcome messages. Just fill in a little bit of information, and then you'll be in with the rest of the community. 13 minutes remain here at race 3 in the GT3 Championship, just about to put a stamp in the end of week 3 as we begin week 4 in the Touring Car Championships. As I mentioned earlier on, touring cars are currently sort of headed up by our championship leader in the form of my co-colleague here tonight in the console, and it's going to be around Long Beach this week, mate. It's going to be a tricky race, that one.
Oh, I'm definitely going to bin it 100%. I did maybe 5 laps the other day, and I don't think there wasn't a wall I didn't find. So yeah, that's going to be a real tough one, especially in touring cars, which are known to be a little bit more pushy shovey than some other cars would allow. But to be honest, I can't wait. I love it.
Yeah, it's a wild track. For those of you that don't know it, the Long Beach one is certainly going to be action-packed in the touring cars. You'll be able to join me live on YouTube from Tuesday 8 o'clock PM, and you'll be able to see the console trying to maintain his perfect record in the Touring Car Championship. Nobody able to disturb that for now, and I for one really hope that somebody can do by the end of the season.
Remember, pink cars go faster.
Most definitely, yeah. So let's Linga Bazinga wish that he had a pink car. At the moment, he's still not able to get past Brucelaw. He's maintained pressure all the way, and we can see him now in the slipstream and making inroads onto him. So we'll look into the cockpit cam. Oh, as we see him getting very close to the rear bumper there of Brucelaw. Getting very close indeed, and he's just 3/10 behind. Let's have a look what he can do through this infield section. We just see Brucelaw a little bit smoother perhaps through that one. Now we're going to see the drive of the AMG though, closing that gap. Looks as though Luke Snipes is about to come under pressure from the 488 of Poison Rage in 10th place. I won't flip on over to that one yet, because I've got a feeling that Linga Bazinga is going to want to try and make his move if he can. Little Zodiac into the pits once again. Australian driver in 12th place. He's having an absolute nightmare today, and perhaps that coffee is wearing off. It's probably coming up to around about 7:30 in the morning in Australia. So still waking himself up, but it's been an unfortunate run. See there, his lap times aren't too bad compared to the rest of the field. Just a couple of seconds off the pace. In fact, talking about a couple of seconds off the pace, Blankfire last time around did a 1:29.92. We'll flip on over to Poison Rage at the moment in his quest to try and take over 9th place of Luke Snipes. Moves over to the outside, and they're going to drag it all the way down into turn 1. Luke Snipes with the inside line there, but as I mentioned before the start of the race, it doesn't always work, and it looks as though the Ferrari's just got its nose ahead. You see Luke Snipes there squirreling under braking, cuts off the inside of the first turn. I think he's potentially got himself a slowdown. I'm not sure though. He's still going great guns. It's even trading places not yet trading paint. And then we see Poison Rage there. Whoa, getting very sideways indeed. Just makes a little bit of contact with Luke Snipes. Controls it beautifully. Gets himself back facing the right way. And not much time lost really in the grand scheme of things, because that was a big spin from Poison Rage. Luke Snipes continues to maintain his 9th position. Back on over to our battle for 2nd place on the podium. Looks as though Blankfire meanwhile last lap around has been able to recover his lap times, a 125.3 from the Belgian.
Something Lecky just brought up on the stream is that Survivor is currently sitting in 6th. He's actually up from 11th, so he's having a great day. He's sort of flying a bit under the radar of all the other action going on, but a great effort for him, and looked to score some good points.
Yeah, it really is, and I think I did mention it before, but it is a great position for him. I'm just bringing up the standings for it. I mean, he's doing pretty well inside the standings as well. He's
I mean, as we said, that Stoltz is closing the gap. Maybe we shouldn't have said anything, Merv. We should just left him alone.
Commentator's curse, perhaps, as we see Stoltz taking that position.
Oh, I'm sorry, buddy.
Yeah, the commentator's curse strikes again. But yeah, I mean, he finds himself in 11th position, but he was a bit of an underdog in this championship, and I think it's a case of, if he continues the way that he's going, he'll see himself over the top half of the championship in no time at all. There's some pretty good competition, getting your names up and around the sort of top 7 drivers. I mean, if we have a look at who's around him, we've got TCB Giacomo, Fast AF Gamer, Luke Snipes, who we've mentioned, who's having a great season this season, in 7th place, and then some really quick fellas in the case of Snarling Bongo, Immortalis, Dr. Potford. Not massively far away from them either if you can get together some results, but we'll have to wait and see how the season pans out. Just coming up to halfway in the season next week's race, so all to play for, and it does look as though Linga Bazinga, whilst I've been speaking, has got the move done on Brucelaw. Brucelaw will not be happy about that. 7 minutes remaining inside the session, and he's held him off for so long as well.
Linga actually wobbling the car there. Looks like he's actually trying to get some heat back into the tyres, so temperature's still maybe playing a little bit against Linga at the minute, but
Linga there getting
this is far from over.
Very tail happy. Recovered it well, really. He could have so easily just lost a load of time, or even worse, just continued that oversteer and spun it around, but he's maintained track position, and he's pulling away from Brucelaw ever so slightly.
I think the thing for Bruce now is to don't let him drive away, stay close, but let everything cool down, get the tyres back, get the brakes back, and then when Bruce is ready to then apply the pressure back on and have another swing at it when the car's as good as it can be. I mean, tyre wear is going to be a problem now. They're not going to have the grip that they did have. The fuel is going to have gone down, so the cars are going to be lighter, a lot squirmier. So relax. There's still time. And nothing to push for immediately.
Just noticing then on the speedo that we've got on the right hand side of your screen at the moment, momentarily Brucelaw's engine temp, or oil temp, was up to 107. That's pretty damn high. That is going to start to overcook your engine. You're going to start to sustain a little bit of engine damage running at those high speeds. That quite often comes down to running up against the red line, so it shows that he's pushing hard. Now, slow down penalty for Linga Bazinga allows Brucelaw to come up into P2. So advantage once again falls to the driver from Chester. And the Dutchman will have to come and fight once again, so it returns back to its previous position. 5 minutes remaining, and let's have a look at what's going on a little bit further down the grid. So it looks as though Survivor is able to hold on to the back of Stoltz, and he's even being able to apply a little bit of pressure here.
Yeah, That McLaren not known for its straight line speed, so that AMG is going to chew him up on the way down to turn 1. As you see him going to go to the inside now and get on the brakes nice and late. Is he done it late enough? He has. Great move from Survivor there if he can make it stick.
It's textbook. He has lost the inside line into the next corner, but he will have it coming into the right-hander that's coming up.
Well held.
McLaren looks a little bit more poised, but it's just lacking in that speed, and the Survivor ends up taking the place back. 6th position for him. Stoltz falls back down into 7th. Let's go back up to the battle for 2nd. I feel quite bad that we've not been able to give Blankfile much screen time here. It's been a textbook drive from him. He's got 25 seconds almost to his nearest rivals, and we have seen him lose laps. It hasn't been a flawless race. But the mistakes that he's made have been so minuscule that it hasn't given any other drivers a window of opportunity to try and close in the gap. I've got Lecky asking about penalties at the moment. We'll bring up the timing board briefly. It looks as though Luke Snipes has managed to bag himself a 30-second penalty out of nowhere, but other than that, nobody else currently having any penalties applied. That'll be a shame for Luke Snipes. That's going to put him down into 11th place and gift Green Gaming with a 10th. I've not seen him come into the pits either, so it'll be interesting to see how he's got those 30 seconds. I'm sure we'll hear it when we get back into the paddock after Parc Ferme. But lap 30 now of Indianapolis's road course, and 3 minutes remaining inside this time session. Looks as though Immortalis has just picked off Survivor in no time at all. Almost made me think that Survivor potentially has had a little bit of an accident there, maybe had a little bit of a spin, because Stoltz and Immortalis just passed him like it was nothing. No damage to the front of the AMG, but Immortalis is now right onto the back of Stoltz's McLaren, and it's job done from him. So Immortalis has left it very late, but he's made a good recovery out of this. Now finds himself in 6th position with only a couple of laps remaining. Back on over to 2nd and 3rd place. Linga Bazinga still trailing behind the 2nd place of Brucelaw in that Garten SLS.
I think there's probably going to be 2, maybe 3 laps left. So Linga's still got some time left, but he's going to want to be getting that move done sooner rather than later. And I got a feeling it's going to be into turn 1 now.
There's a lot of pressure applied, I think, as time starts to slip away. Just coming out of the final turn. You can see him now almost on the bumper. Brucelaw moves up to the inside just to try and disrupt the toe. Looks as though both drivers are going to maybe stick to the inside line. No, Brucelaw holds on to the inside. We've got Linga Bazinga on the outside line.
And this is going to give Linga the run into turn 2.
Bazinga has got the run on it. It was a great move. It was textbook, really. I mean, I think Brucelaw maybe just overbraked himself ever so slightly, but Linga Bazinga really held his nerve there and got that job done. And he's got a pretty comfortable lead as well. It looks 0.7 of a second. That's going to be hard for Brucelaw to be able to catch up on. He just needs to make sure now that he doesn't get any slowdown penalties and make any mistakes in the final little bit of time. And it looks as though we've got all sorts of action going on behind. Dr. Potford is under pressure by Snarling Bongo. Snarling Bongo has made up a fair bit of time, and we've also got Stoltz hanging onto the back of Immortalis at the moment. So battle between Ferraris and both Mercedes AMGs and a McLaren as well.
Looks like everyone's challenging the inner Lando Norris for these last lap dash.
Yeah, everybody's pushing pretty hard just to try and make inroads. I mean, we've got a lot of drivers that are all within sort of 1 or 2 seconds of each other, and it's so easy to make a minor mistake on this where you can just close up maybe half a second, 3/4 of a second in no time. Brucelaw looks as though he's closed the gap on Linga Bazinga.
And this is going to be the final lap, I believe.
I think it is. In fact, the time is definitely up. Let's have a look. Oh, as we see Linga Bazinga running wide, just manages to catch it and keep it on the black stuff. Brucelaw is pushing hard. Let's just have a look at where Blankfile is at the moment. Bring up the track map. So just coming through the final sector here. Back over to Brucelaw and Linga Bazinga.
The noise from them AMGs is incredible coming down the backstretch. The tap fully open on both of them.
Very angry punnet of bees, it seems, as Blankfile crosses the line now. That is race victory for Blankfile. It was almost a flawless victory from him, and we continue to watch the action between second and third place, because this is going to go down to the wire, it seems. Just 4 more corners to go, and Brucelaw is really trying to dial up the pressure to try and take it from the Dutchman. But Linga Bazinga continues to remain on top here. He's got 0.4 of a second as they come around the final bend, and I don't think Brucelaw is going to have the drive for it, so it's going to be Linga Bazinga's in second place, Brucelaw in third, and a great drive from both of those drivers. Snarling Bongo, meanwhile, has got past Dr. Potford. I spoke too soon. There's the commentator's curse once again. So Dr. Potford moves up into 4th place. Snarling Bongo drops down into 5th. He's going to have to get a wriggle on to make sure that he doesn't lose too much time and maybe come under pressure from Immortalis should he make any other mistakes. That is, of course, Luke Snipes that we see behind him, but 4th place is going to go to Dr. Potford. He comes around the final bend for the last time here. And a great race from him in the end. He got a little bit lucky in the final lap, but 4th place for Dr. Potford. Snarling Bongo just coming around the final bend for 5th position. Immortalis is not going to be able to complete this lap, so he's going to remain in 6th place. Stoltz in 7th, and Survivor unfortunately unable to hold on to it for 8th position. But here is the final running order of the day. Blankfile to claim the victory. Great race from him. Linga Bazinga in 2nd position with Brucelaw in 3rd. Dr. Potford comes in at 4th place with Snarling Bongo in 5th, Immortalis in 6th, and Stoltz in 7th. Survivor does well in 8th in the end to get ahead of the unfortunate Poison Rage in his debut GT3 race, getting collected at the very start, and 9th place was quite a good finish from him, all things considered. Green Gaming does well for 10th place with Luke Snipes in 11th, Luna Zodiac in 12th, Old Smokey in 13th, but retired, so won't score any points for that one, along with Fast AF Gamer. And in case you missed it, Blankfile also got the fastest lap of the race and will pick up the bonus points with a 1 minute 24.740. So, fantastic racing there, I think, Console. Hope you enjoyed that one, mate.
What a race. I mean, what a finish, really. Testament to these guys, really, that they're still fighting for it, even down to the very last lap. Great watch, great to see, and I hope they do it again next week.
Yeah, let's bring it on. I mean, next week's action will be at Long Beach. You'll be able to join both me and the Console live from 8 o'clock PM for that one. In case you may have missed it or haven't done it yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and please do leave us any comments. We appreciate reading all of them, and we'll always try and get back to you. If you want to know more about what's going on through the community but don't really want to join, maybe you don't have a PlayStation 4 or you currently don't sim race but you want to keep your finger on the pulse of all the action, then do follow us on any of our social media accounts. We are easily able to search in both Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Just hit that like, follow and subscribe and leave your comments in there, and we'll be bringing you all of the goings on and updates throughout the week. As mentioned earlier, you'll be able to join myself for the Touring Car Championship and see the Console out on track to see whether or not he can maintain his position live at Long Beach. That is Tuesday from 8 o'clock. And from the rest of it, that is all we've got time for this week. I hope that you have a great week ahead, and until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend, depending on whereabouts you're watching it. I've been Murphy, your host for the evening, and thank you very much